Hey, what's up? So this video is about the Mandela effect. I am making this because I just had an experience with this of my own, right? And so basically the Mandela effect is something. So I just got my computer here, so I'm just reading it. It says it was coined by this woman, Fiona Broome, in 2009 because she noticed what she remembered is Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s. Whereas, say like in as far as I don't pay attention to that kind of stuff, right? But I mean, most people would say no, that Nelson Mandela got out of prison and he became the president and stuff like that. So it's a funny thing to have remembered something differently from what other people remember. Might think that you're crazy, or it's like, how does a person make sense of that kind of thing? Um, and so for myself, what happened just the other day, I watched the movie Crocodile Dundee. Not the whole thing. I kind of just skipped through to find my favorite parts, and there was my favorite part, which is where he's in New York City, and the guy he's walking through a back alley, and then there's these guys that come up to him, and then they say, "Give me all your money," and they got like a switchblade or something, and then he pulls out his like 10-inch knife and says the line, "That's not a knife, this is a knife." But when I watched this movie, that line, it wasn't what I have always remembered it as, which is, "This is a knife." It's, "That's not a knife, that's a knife." And I was like, what on earth? Because I've seen this movie many times. That's my favorite line. I quote it. I don't quote it all the time, but I've quoted it a number of times over the course of my life, just because it's a funny thing, if you have a giant knife, or, there's a circumstance where it makes sense to say that. You say, "That's not a knife, this is a knife." For me, it rolls off of your tongue. And like I said, I've seen the movie many times. I own the movie. And so it's an odd thing for your favorite line from a movie to all of a sudden be different, right? And then so I of course Googled it, and I'm not the only person who feels this way. You can go on Reddit, and people remember it both ways. Some people say, "Oh, that doesn't make any sense, that's a knife," because they remember it in a different way, right? And the same thing with the Mandela effect. And then so there's a number of other things aside from Nelson Mandela dying in prison or becoming president. There's notable ones. There's this one in Star Wars where Darth Vader says, "Luke, I am your father." Another iconic line. And I remember I used to have a little thing that I got from this store back in the day, San Francisco store, and it was a little head, and you could push buttons, and it said that. I remember the line, but if you watch the film, if I watch the film now, that's not what it says, and it trips you out. You're just like, it says, apparently now it says, "No, I am your father." And when you hear that, it's jarring. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. I clearly remember it being differently. Something about Snow Wives, the spelling of Oscar Mayer, Meyer versus Mayer. Mayer. The location of New Zealand is another one. The spelling of the Bernstein Bears, whereas now it's the Bernstein Bears. I grew up reading the Bernstein Bears, and now it's the Bernstein Bears. Yeah, Pikachu, Mickey Mouse's suspenders. It's not such a big one for me. Uh, Looney Tunes. Yeah, not so much. Jiffy peanut butter. Now it's Jif, and it used to be Jiffy. I always knew it as Jiffy. Not that I ever ate it, so I guess I shouldn't even comment on that one. Wouldn't eat that stuff. Curious George, though, used to have a tail, and apparently he doesn't. Which is a funny one. Fruit Loops. I always remember it Fruit. Now it's Froot. Fruit of the Loom is another one too. Like the logo of Fruit of the Loom. Like you can look this stuff up, and it's like in there there's like a bunch of fruit, and then there's a cornucopia, which is kind of like a horn, the horn of plenty. It's a part of the thing. And but according to Fruit of the Loom, that has never been their symbol or anything. It's never included a cornucopia, even though some people remember it as being like that. C-3PO's leg is one of these ones that they say in Star Wars he had a silver right leg. And it's like, no, he didn't. Maybe like once it got fixed, remember he got torn apart there once. There's some Casablanca thing. Say it again, Sam. Play it again, Sam. I mean, I never saw the movie, so I don't know. Mr. Rogers, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I I swear, I mean, because he's such an awesome dude. I I think he's like a saint. That guy, right? And I've seen his show many times. I mean, there's a Tom Cruise movie with him too, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I think that's what it's called. I have a screensaver picture that comes up because I really appreciate that guy's energy. Some of the things, if you've heard him talk um, about how just something to do with it. He was like in court and talking about like how important certain shows are for kids to help them to get in touch with their emotions, how to process things that happen to them in mature kind of manner. And yeah, I mean it's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. I mean it doesn't make any sense to me because that's not how I remember it at all. And it's small. All these things are small, but it gives you, it's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. The Mr. Monopoly guy, he had a monocle in the universe where I grew up. Now he doesn't. And so some people, there's this website, I'm not going to mention, goes on to have explanations of what's going on. Some of them are like they're false memories. I don't know. I mean, maybe you could be high on drugs. Maybe some kind of schizophrenia or confabulation. The brain fills in gaps, so you remember things that didn't happen. I mean, there's a number of things, of ideas and things like that. But anyways, I mean, all that kind of stuff aside, for myself, I understand this to be just a side effect of shifting realities. I mean, if you follow Bashar's work at all, I mean, and I think that they do mention it here on this website about how it relates to quantum physics and alternate realities or universes and things like that. And that is, but then it says, which is kind of which is what got me. It's like, you aren't alone if you think this sounds unrealistic. Unfortunately, yeah. So it's just like, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, for myself, it's a bit, I don't know if the word is annoying, but it's like there's a biased view there, right? To say, to rule something out, to say it's unrealistic, right? I mean, yeah, I personally don't appreciate that, especially sometimes when I read something on Wikipedia, like, which I do really enjoy a lot of what they offer. They sometimes will talk about something. I was reading, because I'm studying Hinduism right now, and so in there is this there is like a story of an individual called Manu, which is just like Moses for what it's worth from the Bible. And so it talks about this and about the similarities between the stories and Gilgamesh. I think it's all the same story essentially, that there was a flood and there was a boat and there was a guy. And and anyways, something along those lines. And so but then it says, and it's very subtle, right? But it says this and other creation myths. And if you look up what a myth is, it's like something that isn't real, something that is like made up, like a story that is used to describe things with lacking like an understanding. And of course, there are elements to those stories which may have been elaborated upon because back in the day, I suppose people were a bit more, may have been, it's hard to know. You have no idea what somebody from thousands of years ago was experiencing and stuff like that, and how they perceive the world and the understanding that they have. I mean, because really all of this ancient wisdom is from thousands of years ago. So it's like to think that they were super ignorant, yet now in 2024, we're referencing these thousands of years old texts to try to come back to that understanding. So to think that these people were like ignorant and stuff like that. I mean, and there's also, of course, with any story, there's like different interpretations of it. There might have been like some people see something and then they get it in their head that it's this, but that doesn't mean that everybody believed that. So yeah, I mean, it's a thing with like folklore and myths. And so I think that it can be very misleading to label some of these things as that because of what the definitions of those words are. But also, so with this whole Mandela effect, to say that it's just people who are confused or out to lunch or high on drugs or whatever it is, right? I mean, I just think that that's kind of yeah, I mean, it's like somebody has I don't know if the word is an agenda, or like they have a bias, right? They have and we all do, of course. Like I have this spiritual bias. So for myself, what you're experiencing, because it's how it's been explained to me, is that you are shifting from parallel realities. Like Bashar says, we shift billions of times per second. And so based on where we're at, because there is only now, and when we shift constantly, and it seems like it's real, but really what's taking place is this shifting of realities. And eventually, you can shift to ones where there are slight differences, where you start to notice things like that. And so that is, as far as I know, the Mandela effect is very real. It's something that is it is a side effect of these shifting of realities. It's something that we're waking up to in this day and age, to be much more consciously aware of what is going on, of the way that manifestation works, of how things like karma actually works. Why do we receive these reflections and stuff like that? Yeah, I don't know if I should just stop there. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it.